Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Meet Me at the Spot. I'm your host, Holly, and it is season 3. I can't believe it, y'all. When I started this podcast almost 2 years ago, I never thought I would be this far, having this much fun, and learning this much. And I'm so thankful to each and every one of you. Whether you've been a listener since day one or you're just joining us on this amazing journey, I am thankful for you and thankful for all of the support you all have shown me. This week, I am talking to Heather Reese. Heather is a personal injury lawyer based in Center City, Philadelphia, passionate about fighting for justice. Her journey began with an internship at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, where she learned the legal system and developed her advocacy skills. Now she stands up for clients facing personal injuries, ensuring their stories are heard. Proudly Latina and adopted from Peru, Heather is committed to increasing visibility for Latinas in all fields. Outside the courtroom, she is also a model and activist, using her voice to create space for others. Heather inspires young women to pursue their dreams and fight for justice. With all of that, let's go ahead and jump into my conversation with Heather. Well, hello, Heather, and welcome. So for the listeners, if you want to take a minute, introduce yourself, who you are, what you're all about, and just a little bit about you.
Sure. So my name is Heather Reese. I'm a personal injury attorney in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm Latina. And this past 2 years, I've been on a mission to showcase Latino, Latina, and Latinx businesses. That's like the biggest part of my social media base. But I'm also an activist for tons of other groups, women's rights. There's just a whole bunch of things. I'm also a model. I'm the least boring attorney you'll ever meet.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, because sometimes when people hear attorney, they're like, oh man, what conversation is this going to be? Yeah, I can already tell you, we've been talking for a couple minutes and before I press record, and you're not going to be bored by this conversation, I promise. What got you started in, working in, the legal field and also, around your passion for like women's health and things like that? Like, what got you into all of the things that you do?
Yeah, so I always really kind of wanted to be a lawyer. I'm adopted from Peru, and my parents' friends were lawyers, and my best friend's parents were lawyers. So I had a lot of people around me that were lawyers that kind of geared me into that. And I kind of always knew that's what I wanted to do. When I was in law school, I did an internship at the district attorney's office, and I got to work with women against abuse, and I got to work with domestic violence victims. And I think it kind of really put it into perspective for me, just like how women are treated in the legal field and just how women are treated as a whole. I've also really been a huge champion for women's rights, I would say, just like anybody else. I mean, I think everyone's views change. My views have changed over the course of my life, I'm sure. Things that I believed when I was 15, 18 are different than how I believe as a 34-year-old. But for me, it's always been, since I've had a platform, I've wanted to show young Latina girls that, you can have a voice, you can have an opinion, and people are going to be around you and support you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. That you were, had a lot of role models kind of growing up in this field. And then I always love when like an internship or some sort of like college experience like kind of leads people into this work by sort of happy accident. But it always ends up kind of being a really cool connection that folks have. And just like that, you're a champion for women's health and especially around domestic violence victims. And then, also being a role model as well for, Latino women as well, which is, I think is so important to have role models in this space. Like you doing this work, like you're someone else's role model now. I don't want to put that pressure on you, Heather. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I always tell people, I'm like, I've had so many young girls write to me, and I'm just like, hey, listen, if I'm who you think you want to be one day, it's a rough road. Like so many tragedies have brought me to where I'm at today. Um, and I'm so grateful for it though, because the person that I've become is somebody that I'm truly proud of. But I always tell people like the only role model I know how to be is the person that I am, right? And I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Some people aren't a big fan, some people are. I don't pretend to be perfect. People want to, come out and say things I did when I was 15, 14, 13. I'm always like, yeah, I probably did and said that. Like, I think that's the big thing about a lot of creators and influencers and just people in public spaces. It's like, don't ever like pretend that you didn't learn from experiences. And I think that's my big thing. Like, I've been so blessed to be able to learn from my experiences, to be able to learn how to be a better person, how to be, more cautious and aware and observant and empathetic. All of those things you get, you learn through life and through life experiences. No one is perfect. Somebody might tell you that, they've had a perfect life, and I just would never believe them.
Mm-mm. No, I wouldn't either. They're hiding something.
Yeah, usually are. They usually are.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that because, you know, learning is a lifelong journey. Growing, the more information you know and the more you can grow and change. Like if anyone's like in their 30s and are still like a same mindset, the exact same mindset as when they were 15, I mean, I have some concerns. I have some questions, you know?
Yeah.
Like hopefully life experiences have led you to kind of shape your opinion differently. And maybe even change your opinion at all. Yeah. Things I thought were true in
Oh
middle
my
school and high
gosh,
school. I'm
yeah.
like,
You
wait.
gain education, you gain knowledge, you gain experience, you gain exposure. I mean, there's just so many things. I mean, I was brought up in a pretty sheltered life. I went to Jewish school, K through sixth. It was a private Jewish school. And I think like, you get exposed to different things in life and you get exposed to different situations, and the way that you thought you once were always going to think changes. And I think that's the best part about being human, is that you have the ability to be able to change. You have, the consciousness to be able to say, hey, I learned this information. I think I'm going to think differently now. I think I'm going to view things differently now. And I think so many people are afraid to get like called out for like, shape shifting or whatever. And I think for me it's like, no, be a shapeshifter. Like change, grow, progress. Like all of these things are great things and things that we should encourage in individuals. We shouldn't be like, well, remember when you said this? No, we should say, I'm so glad that you don't say that anymore. I'm glad that this is where you're at in life and in space.
I think of people, especially like you said, content creators and, people who are in the public eye, especially the more public you become, the more people will dig and try to find the skeletons in your closet.
Oh,
They're
there's
like,
probably so many in mine. I always tell people this. I'm like, babe, it's probably not even hard to look up.
no,
I probably
no,
have a
it's not.
billion skeletons, and I just genuinely don't care. Like,
No.
I genuinely am a person that I I am exactly who I am on the internet as I am in real life. And like I said, I'm so lucky and so blessed that I've gotten to grow and I've gotten to learn. And some of those lessons are hard, and some of those things that you grow from are things that you might necessarily not be proud of, right?
Mhm.
Like, and and for me, like, I think the biggest thing is just being authentic and owning your shit. Like,
Mhm.
I'm always gonna own it. If somebody says I hurt them, like, I always tell people, you're probably the villain in somebody else's story.
Mhm.
I like to think I'm not the villain in most people's stories, but I'm sure there's a few people you ask them I'm the villain. And I'm also probably the hero in other people's, right? I always say to people, like, your narrative is your truth for you, right? And I'm not here to tell you that what you're saying and what you're feeling is wrong. You're entitled to feel however you want to feel, just like I am too. But
Mhm.
I'm going to live my life to be authentic to me
Mhm.
and to showcase my growth and my progression. And if you don't want to be a part of that journey, or you want to stick in the past, that's on you. I do think it does suck the more you get into the public eye and the more you get well known in a fan base. People love to find horrible things that people did in the past. And And I mean, like, as long as you don't lie, like, don't lie and say you didn't do it. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
there's videos of people doing it. Like, just say, like, yeah, I did it, probably. Like, just own
Yeah.
it. Just own your shit.
Yeah. I agree. Like, yeah, I did that. I was dumb. I made a dumb choice and I've learned from it. And this is how I've grown. And, let's talk about how people can and should be growing. I always use the example like, back like a long time ago. I think it was when really like before like 2020 when Black Lives Matter started, but back in like 15, 2016, even before that, I was one of those people that was like, no, all lives matter. And in my heart, I was genuinely coming from a good place. Like, no, but like everybody's lives matter. And then the more I started to learn and educate myself and really become a little more like politically involved and activism involved, and I was like, oh shit, no, wrong.
Right.
I
No,
was like, oh, but I
it's
own that, right? Like I say, like I get when a lot of people are saying that, you think you're coming from a good place, and let me tell you why you're not. Like I was the same way. Really thought I was coming from a positive energy, like it's like the same thing. Like when my parents are like, "No, we don't see color," and I'm like, "I'm gonna stop you right there because you do see color," and
right. No, and I think that's a beautiful thing about life. Like, so many people were on the All Lives Matter movement, and so many people were like, I saw that great, I'm sure you did too, that great illustration where it's like one person's house is on fire. You're not
Mhm,
gonna pour water on every house that's not on fire, right? We need to deal with the people whose house is on fire currently. And I think like a lot of things that are misguided come from a good place. And that's
mhm,
the best part about education. That's the best part about knowledge. It's like you learn from that moment, right?
mhm,
You learn to be like, hey, listen, like, no, I get it. I've learned, I've gotten more politically involved. I mean, that's the other big thing, right? Like, if you choose to stand for nothing, you fall for everything.
mhm,
And that so easily happens because social media and society and the media do a great job of like feeding you stuff that it's super easy to fall into things. And unless you really know and you really educate and you really learn, you're kind of in a place of like, wait, what? Maybe I do, like, should I go along with that? Should I go along with that? You know what I mean? There's just so many things that are coming at you from like a million different ways that I think it's like, unless you take the time
mhm.
to gain political, knowledge and, you know, experiences and read and research, then you're kind of easily susceptible to that fallen trap.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's such a good point. And I think a lot of people fall into this trap of there's so much out there, I don't know what to believe, so I'm just not going to listen to any of it.
Yeah.
And it's like that's also really dangerous. That so that someone could be so disconnected and so disengaged. And unfortunately, that's the reality for a lot of things. We're recording this on a day where there was just a school shooting,
I
today.
did hear about that. Yeah, no,
And,
that's
and that's
terrible.
so, and I
And
don't
we're
want to say
so
we're like,
desensitized to it, right? Like,
yeah,
my dad sent me, it's so funny. My best friend's dad, I call him my dad. He sent our whole family a text message about it. I have a sister who's a teacher. My best friend who I call my sister, she's a teacher. Her brother is a teacher. Her mom's a teacher. Like, so many people in my life are teachers. And it's like you go through these moments where and my family teaches in inner city Philadelphia.
hmm
And it's, you go through spaces where you're like, man, what? Like, and then what's so sad is you do get so desensitized to it. Like, I remember saying to my niece, who is now, oh my gosh, she's gonna kill me. She's now 15, being like, do I need to get her like a bulletproof backpack?
right,
Do I need to get her like that insert for her purse that can stop a bullet? And then I was like, what?
right.
Like, what is this world coming to where like that's what I'm thinking of getting my niece, not even for a Christmas gift, just for her own life to be like, what? That's crazy. I never
Wow.
thought about that growing up. Like, I'm 34. It wasn't even a thought process in my brain.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, I remember doing like the hurricane drills. Like, I thought that was
Mhm.
tragic. And I mean, I'm like, It really is incredibly sad, and you know, my heart goes out to the families that are affected by that. Truly, I can't imagine losing family members to something that is so such an integral part of our lives, which is education. And it is truly devastating that in this day and age, there is a danger in being educated.
I used to be a teacher. I went to school. I thought I was going to be a teacher my whole life. Um, so cute. And then I left. I left that life. Middle schoolers are not for me. But um, I remember when I was student teaching and Virginia Tech, the shooting at Virginia Tech happened, and I was in the teachers' lounge, and we were watching this, and I was like, school is supposed to be a safe place for kids. There are a lot of kids who go to school, and regardless if you're in a city school or a suburban school or out in rural districts, um, there are kids who go through so much shit at home in their neighborhoods. Like, we don't know what kids are going through on a day-to-day basis. But school is supposed to be the place that they can come to and be safe and feel protected. And when it's not anymore, like, where are we supposed to tell kids like they can go? How are we supposed to motivate people to like go into teaching when this is a potential? I mean, you know, you can't live your life in fear of everything, you know, because everywhere you go there could be an incident. Unfortunately, like, that's the sad reality, right? Like, but to think, should I get the young people in my life like bulletproof backpacks and stuff? And then when
I
you
know.
say that shit out loud, you're like, what the hell?
I
What
know.
are
I
we
was so
doing?
sad. I mean, I was like, and I remember saying to my sister, like, what kind of purses should you have? Because they only have specific out like ones. Like you can buy ones that shift into any bag.
Mm,
And I'm just like, man, like I I'm so glad I grew up when I grew up because as much as we rag on the younger generations, damn, they have it tough.
yeah,
They have a different life than we had.
so different.
Totally different life. I mean, from just social media being a toxic portion of body image and lifestyle. And then you have, on top of that, this violence that has now become so, you know, commercialized and just like desensitized. I was like, I'm not gonna like for me, like the violence that I ever experienced watching was like when I was downloading a movie on LimeWire, probably back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, don't arrest me. But like back in the day,
Nope.
like when
I
I was
won't
using
snitch.
LimeWire and like something quick would show up and you'd be like, oh my God. Like, right?
Ah.
Like that was it.
Yeah.
And that was like my only experience with it. It wasn't like in an everyday mindset. I mean, it's just it's incredibly sad that that's the, you know, their new norm.
Yeah, it really is. And it becomes, you know, so difficult. I know, like, you know, for us, like, I'm 39, and so, you know, we had dial-up internet at my house. And so I wasn't online all the time. I didn't have a cell phone, and we definitely didn't have social media right at our fingertips. It's constant. Like, when I went to school, and if I got bullied at school, I would go home and the bullying wouldn't be there, right?
Right.
These kids, it's 24/7, it's nonstop.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's just crazy what these kids go through. And I get it. Like, older generations, like, kids these days, they don't know. Like, no,
Yeah.
you don't get it either. Every generation has faced their own set of stuff. And every generation's had it hard in some way or another. But these kids, like, oh, and now I'm a parent myself, and it's like, oh, my child's not going to school. I'm just going to keep her safe in her little bubble forever. But like, not really, but like,
Yeah, no, I can that's just it truly is devastating.
yeah. Um, so we took like a really sad turn.
I
And so
know.
I'm so sorry.
It's
Um,
okay.
sometimes it takes a weird turn that I don't intend to, and I'm like, that's sad. Uh, so, you know, I'm interested to know in your life's experience, and doesn't need to necessarily even be professional, like, um, what are some messages that you received kind of growing up, or that you see young people hearing growing up around like sexual health, reproductive health, like all that good stuff?
Okay, yeah. So I am like, it's so funny. I just did a live with a Latina sex therapist, and I messaged her at the time. I was like, I'm gonna be vehemently uncomfortable. Like, I was brought up in like a Jewish home where we don't talk about sex, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's why I reached, I offered to do yours, because for me, like, I want to get more uncomfortable with things because no
Mhm.
one talks about it, and it's for me, like, I think so. I grew up, abstinence was a huge thing, right? That's what most people talked about, spread. Um, and no one talked about periods, which is crazy. Like, and I still, like, to this day, as a 34-year-old woman, I still feel like I deal with period shame, like,
Mm.
on a different level, but definitely still, like, like, it's an uncomfortable thing. Even so, like, I'm divorced, even in my previous marriage, like, birth control, plan B, all of these things. Like, I just remember being like, this, I'm so embarrassed to do any of these things. Like,
Mm.
as a married woman, it's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
it is crazy the deep rooted levels of shame that are built into us,
Mhm.
and that we even come with us as adults, right? Like, even as an adult, I'm uncomfortable to talk about it, right? And I'm like, oh, but I'm like, no, if I don't think it's okay, then, like, the next generation's not going to think it's okay. We're going to keep perpetuating this stigma that happens with us when, like, it's just crazy. It's just hurting us. It's hurting our generation. It's hurting our youth. It's just in general. It's just not a good thing. So that's what I would say. Abstinence was huge.
Yeah.
Um, I think my sex ed class, if I even had one at my sixth grade school, I remember, I think our parents had, I'm trying to remember, I think our parents had to come in and watch a video with us. And I
Ooh,
think it was like a
sorry.
characterized, yeah, no, it was terrible. I want to put this into perspective because the only other time our parents came in, this is going to get really dark, is um for like Holocaust Memorial Day, and we
Mm.
would watch Schindler's List. So those are the
Mm.
two times I remember my parents coming in to school, was like that, and then this other talk. And it was like a video, and I mean, I don't remember all of it, but I just remember it was like an animated video. It was more on like the anatomy of your body.
Mhm.
And I just remember thinking to myself, like, what? Like, what? And like, my mom never talked to me about it. We never spoke about it. It's so funny. I was saying this to the woman too. I said, I think I had never even seen my mom in underclothes until I was like, after I was married and she was trying on a dress for my first wedding. Like, I had never,
Yeah.
never gotten
Yeah.
dressed in front of her. She had never gotten dressed in front of me. Like, it was never a thing. Like, it's so strange. Like, even as a married woman, I felt uncomfortable talking about like sex and like, you know, sexual health and just like even periods. Like, it's so crazy. Like, there's so many amazing things out there now to deal with period education. I did a collaboration with this girl, Jess Period, who is a Latina who makes reusable menstrual pads.
Yeah.
And like, I'm lucky because I had only ever used pads growing up, but there's all these things that come out now about like
Mhm.
tampons being bad for you and all this stuff, and like no one ever told anybody. And the funny thing is, the only reason I didn't use tampons is because somebody had said, the only thing I remember about tampons was toxic shock syndrome.
Yep.
Somebody telling me I was gonna die from that.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna die from toxic shock syndrome. I'm gonna die if I have sex. So like, what am I gonna do? Like, what's the plan now? Um, so yeah, no, I mean, that was a whole bunch of things I just laid, but yeah, that's my experience with it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was the only thing they ever told us about tampons. Not about like the different like
Nothing.
the
TSS,
flow,
toxic
like
shock syndrome.
yep, that was it. And it was just like a blurb in like the instructions. And like that's about the extent of people talking about like you could get that and you could die. And it's like, oh, I don't even know what that is. But yeah, I went to Catholic school growing up, so I feel you. We had a little it was awkward, but thankfully my parents were like pretty cool. They were pretty open, but we had people from the local hospital come. We, girls were in one room, boys were in the other room.
Right.
And so, we watched this like corny video about periods and stuff. And they offered like a parent and child class to come to the hospital like in the evenings. And so you could learn a little bit more. So my stepmom and I went to those. And I will never forget those classes. Like I am grown. This was when I was in like sixth grade. Like this was a long time ago. But I learned so much. And even with all of that, the first time I ever got my period was the most traumatic experience of my entire life.
Traumatic.
Literally.
I also thought it only happened once. I remember telling my stepmom being like, thank God this is over and done with. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I'm just so glad. And she was like, babe, it happens every month. And I said, what?
What?
I said, that was a one-time thing.
What the hell?
I know. And then every time after, I'm going to be like, gosh, man, it's because Eve ate that apple. Because that's
that bitch.
Right? I just thought it's because Eve ate an apple. So I'm like, I didn't even like apples. Like, what's happening? Of course, like the fear of like bleeding through your pants.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even as an adult today, I have this overwhelming fear, and it's like so funny because it's actually not funny. It's tragic. But as an adult, I'm always like, well, like if I did, like I think adults around me would obviously tell me, and would it be embarrassing? And then I'm like, yeah, no, it would still be brutally embarrassing. And I'm like, why? I can't control it. I didn't choose to have one.
No, right.
Like it's crazy. It is crazy. It truly is. But there are so many great alternatives now. I have to say, like, I love Just Period's reusable ones. They're like washable. They last for like
That's
5
awesome.
years. They're really great. They're like, first of all, I love to promote Latina businesses, and she is one.
Yeah.
But also, I never would have thought to use one, right? Like, I never would have thought to use a reusable one. I would keep complaining and bitching about the wings coming off the sides of my the sides of the underwear, and then like not being long enough.
Oh, yeah.
Like they measure them out. Like she'll tell you to measure like whatever you need to measure. They have overnight. They have the long ones. They have the short ones. They have like they can hold like 3 pads worth. It's crazy.
Wow.
And I'm just like, that's the move. Somebody should have told me that when I was 13 years old.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really cool. And I am going to look them up and link them in the show notes
great.
because like
she's so great into like promoting period knowledge and like showing that there's like period poverty, because that's the other big thing, right? Like I bitch about getting my period, and then I'm like, some girls like don't have the means that we have, and it's not like a nationally given thing or worldwide given thing, which to me I just can't get past that. At some schools they're still charging for pads. Like, what are we doing?
It is so, it's so wild. And like I didn't know, I'm the same as you. Like I didn't know period poverty was really a thing, fortunately. Like I never had to experience that, but in doing a lot of this work as a sexual health educator, I was told a story by a colleague of a young woman who went to the grocery store. She had her period, she needed pads, but she didn't have money, so she stole them. And the grocery store called the cops. It's a young Black girl. Thankfully, the cop that showed up was not an asshole. And, she was like, I will go and buy you pads and tampons. But like you think about, we're like, but there's resources out there. But some of those resources are only open till certain hours. You don't control when your period comes, right? Sometimes your period comes at 2 a.m, and all of a sudden
also, you have to have the means to get to those resources. Like that's the other big thing, right? Like, yeah, you might have churches or synagogues or businesses that give them out, but like you also have to have a ride to get there. And if you don't have a ride, then what? You're supposed to take the bus. How much does the bus cost to get there?
Make sure to check back next week as I continue my conversation with Heather. I can't wait for y'all to hear all of the fun that we had in our conversation. Even more fun than part 1. Part 2, we just have a great time. So make sure to check back here next Wednesday. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Meet Me at the Spot. I'm your host, Holly, and this week I continue my conversation with Heather Reese. If you didn't hear part 1 from last week, go listen to that so you're all caught up for this week's episode. Let's go ahead and jump right back into it.
To me, it's so crazy that it's not like The same way we were able to ship out free COVID tests, we should be able to ship out pads every month. And I mean, I'm not saying it's like sustainable or economically even, smart. I just mean as a human, like,
Yeah.
what are we doing where we're having people having to go through life dealing with something that none of us chose? Like, none of us woke up one day and we're like, I want to have a period, right? Like, that wasn't a thing that I was like, can't wait.
Can't wait to be bleeding.
Yeah, right. And like you see, and like deal with excruciating pain. That's
Yeah.
the other big thing that we all never talk about. Like, I love those videos of the guys having to do the
Yes.
the period pain with the TENS unit stimulators. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, like I'm at a 9 every time I get my period, and you're over here asking if my paperwork is filed. No,
Yeah. No.
I'm barely holding it on. I'm
Yeah.
barely holding it together. I'm on the edge. Like, and then I'm hoping that I don't cough so I don't just bleed everywhere. So I'm
Like
like,
it's just splats everywhere.
right. I'm praying that I make it through, and then I'm praying that I don't. I'm not gonna it's excruciating. It really is, and honestly, like it's so underplayed. Like so many people are like, it's just like a period, and they're like, oh, well, what are you like? And I hate when guys say like, oh, what are you doing with your period? Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Or you're just making me pissed, and I'm just telling you that. I don't have to be on my
Yeah.
period to tell you that you suck. I'm just gonna
Yes.
tell you you suck because you suck, not because I'm on my period. Like,
No, now you're just annoying me. And you're
yeah.
lucky I'm not on my period because it would be even worse right now for you.
Right. Then I would really be mad. It is crazy the way that we have we stigmatize periods and just like sexual health as a whole. But I mean, periods is just the most tragic for me because it really is. Um, as much as I complain, I just have so many availability to resources to be able to, deal with it. And
Hmm.
there are so many girls that are out there that aren't and don't. So I always tell people, please, 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 if you have extra time, extra money, whatever you can do, donate to local shelters.
Hmm.
Make sure that you are doing what you can, because having to be um homeless without anything, or having to be living in a different level of poverty to be able to afford it, if you're choosing between feeding your child and getting a pad, do what you can to find resources that can help these people out, because it's just it's a tragedy that that's where we're at.
Yeah. It's so wild because we have the resources to be able to assist people with this. And because we have, stigmatized and shamed people around periods, as a young person, I would never go to a business or to, my after school program or whatever and be like, hey, do you have some pads or tampons? Like, hell no, I would have never done that. Even now,
Even now,
it's like,
even now at my job, like even now as a 34-year-old adult lawyer, I'm like tucking my pads in my pocket,
putting
like
it in your
putting
sleeve.
it in my bra, like making sure it's not shown, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy. It really is. It really is. And I think actually, like, a lot of the places I've worked at, they still have like the vending machines in the bathroom that charge money. And I always think to myself, like, what are we doing?
Why?
Who's getting that money? Because I need to
Right.
talk to them. Because that's insane. You like, even if it's 25 cents, like people are like, it's not even that much. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it was a penny.
I
Stop.
don't care. Who cares? First of all,
Stop fighting for it.
I don't carry a quarter on me. Like,
Right.
I don't even carry any cash on me. That's like so bad to say, but
Me
I
neither.
really
Never,
don't.
never. Don't ever rob me, because I'm never gonna have cash on me.
No, you can take my car, but you're not gonna get far, babe. Um, but yeah, no, I think it's just so wild. And then we say this is just part of life, and you just have to deal with it and suck it up. And like I remember getting on the pill because my periods were so bad. Um, and being told by my doctors when I said like it's not doing anything to help and it's making me nauseous, like I don't want to take this, and they're like, well, let's just try this different pill, let's just try this, and it wasn't until I started working at like a birth control clinic where I learned like there's so many options. And I like went in to the office and I was like, I want an IUD, and I expected a fight. I was ready, I came prepared, like okay, yeah, let's get it
Well,
scheduled.
do you remember? I mean, I feel like when IUDs were first,
Yeah,
like my memory, they were like, you can't get an IUD unless you've had a
you had a
baby.
kid. Yeah, so many people believe that, and I'm like, that's that is like so outdated. 2024, and I'm sure we'll continue to see this. There are still providers, OBGYNs, for example, who still believe this, and or that we can only put an IUD in when you're on your period because your cervix is more relaxed. Like, no, it's preferable. Like, people are like, I can't get my IUD. I just got my period. It's like, no, go get it. This is the best time. Your cervix is
Yeah,
so
no, it's
relaxed and chill.
crazy. I feel like I've always had male OBGYNs, and people always find that
Oh.
like so crazy. I've always had men, and I've always had great experiences with them. But what I can say is in the past, there have been ones that have been like, when I was married, um, had been like, oh, well, I think I was talking about freezing my eggs when I was like in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, well, does your husband want to do that? Does he know about it? And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Stop. Um, and I've had great ones since then, and even great ones before then. But it's crazy. Like even in like 2024, people are like, did you talk to your husband about that? And I'm like, why? It doesn't affect him in any way, shape, or form.
Nope.
Any way, shape, or form. Like, I don't understand the rhetoric of having to talk about it. I feel like you're getting your tubes tied.
Yeah.
But that to me made more sense than me saying I wanted to freeze my eggs. Right?
Right.
Like, still both wrong. Like, I'm not
Right.
saying that you shouldn't be able to tie your tubes without your consent of a spouse. Do whatever you want to do. But I just mean, like, for something that didn't even affect them, I thought that was like incredibly, incredibly weird. I was like, what? No.
So odd. People ask my spouse all the time, like, "Are you guys gonna have more kids? Oh, you should." And my spouse is like, "If I had the equipment, I would be able to help, but I don't. So it's not up. It's not my decision at the end of the day. It's a decision we both have made to not have any more kids. Like, I'm
So
39.
many people feel so
I'm
comfortable
tired.
talking about children and asking if you're going to have children. Like,
So weird.
I'm engaged, and people are always like, when are you guys going to have kids? You're 34. You're turning 35. It's like a geriatric pregnancy now. And I'm like, okay.
And
And I'm like, I'll let you know the second I decide. Okay. I'll let you know. I'll let you know when we've made the decision. Like,
I,
it's
I had
so
a
weird.
geriatric. I had a geriatric pregnancy.
I'm going to have a geriatric pregnancy too. I'm planning
It
on
was
having
great.
children next year. And I'm like, whatever, man. Like, who cares? Like, I
No.
just think it's so crazy how comfortable we've gotten with asking about kids, asking about women's bodies. It's so weird to me. It's like,
It's so weird. Like, I don't get it. And maybe it's just because like I don't care. It doesn't affect my life. Like, that's how I go through things like laws, giving people, equal rights and just basic human rights. It doesn't change my life, you know. I'm not having a gay wedding myself, but I've been to gay weddings and I love gay weddings.
right.
Doesn't change my life one way or the other, but this fascination we have with people's bodies and specifically women's bodies is
They're
gross.
obsessed. They're obsessed. They're obsessed with
Yeah,
us.
from
It's
from a young
crazy.
from a young age, like the way we like sexualize young people, like the discourse and conversation
It's
on social
so
media,
gross.
like,
It's so gross. It's so gross. I was just saying this to the
uh
other girl too, because I'm so glad that this new generation, people have talked to them. We have, as
yeah.
millennials and Gen X, has said, don't mess around with people that are significantly older than you, because no
Mm.
one said that to me.
Yeah.
No one told me it was weird at 13 that a 17-year-old was interested, or 18-year-old. No one told me at 14 that it's weird if an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old is hanging out with them. Like, no one told me that this was a weird situation to occur. And I think the newest generation, the younger generation, does have that. Like, my niece, I've instilled it in her since she was little. And I remember, and even now, she was always like, well, 2 years is too much if it's more than 2 years. And I'm like, yes, thank God. Because no one told me that at 13. right? Like, I
Yeah.
just thought it was cool if somebody was willing to buy you alcohol. No one was
Yeah.
like, hey, dude, that guy could be dangerous. Thank God that
Yeah.
the people that I hung out with, I mean, it was bad, but thank God they weren't like as bad as they could be, right? Like, thank
Right.
God that morals were somewhat into the picture where they weren't like pressuring you into doing stuff. Because I think back and I'm like, that's terrifying. It is
Yeah.
terrifying that we did not talk about it. And,
Mm.
our generation really got screwed over in that aspect when it came to like inappropriate relationships and
Mhm.
just like, even with older, even that we do the same discourse with like teachers and students and like teachers and like female teachers and young male students. We do a horrible disservice to them and
Mhm.
like sexualizing and glorifying that as being something that's like cool or okay or well she was hot. What? She's a pedophile. She's
Yep.
a predator. Like and I truly do feel bad for young guys in in that situation because we really have as a society done a toll on men as well. We
Oh
really
yeah.
have in being like be tough, be strong, be masculine, never have emotions, bottle it up but then don't rage. And then also like relationships that might happen to you, don't ever discuss feelings, don't ever cry, you know. um if somebody older than you is interested in you that's super hot, you should be grateful. There's just
Mhm.
there's so many things that we've really failed on them as well.
Yeah, I always found that like that weird dynamic with like teacher student because male teachers and female students, we would never just be like, "Oh, he was just so hot," like blah blah. Blah. And I'm like, we would never
Never.
as a
We would be like,
society
lock him up.
lock
He
him
is
up, cut his
gross.
dick off, like
We
seriously,
would
like
seriously be like, this is it. He is done. We're ruining his name. We're
yeah,
messaging his family members and telling them that they raised a horrible man. But we
yeah,
really don't. Like, when it comes to women, you see this total different discourse. Like, oh, we don't want to, it's like the same thing. Like, oh, we don't want to ruin her life. She was so
yeah,
pretty, the relationship got a little bit, the lines got blurred. The lines did not get blurred, babe. I have
no,
never looked at a 16-year-old as an adult and been like, never.
not no,
Like, even 21-year-olds as a
yeah,
34-year-old, I'm like, you
no.
know what I mean?
You're too,
Like,
you're a child.
I'm like, you're literally an adolescent. No.
No, if
Like,
you're under 30 to me, like you're a child.
right,
You're
right.
you're 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 very young. Good for you, but we almost treat a female like teacher who is a perpetrator almost as the victim
Yeah.
still.
It is
And it's like
crazy.
it's so
And like
wild.
the men, like the men don't realize that like what this person is doing to this person is so detrimental.
Oh yeah.
So detrimental. And I think it also happens in same-sex relationships. There's a lot of
Mhm.
times where like people don't talk about grooming in
Mhm.
same-sex relationships and situations. And it's like that's
Yeah,
happening too. It's
absolutely.
happening across the board. And
Yeah.
we need to treat it all the same. We need to say like, "Yo, this is wrong. Like this
Mhm.
is not okay." An age gap that large is not okay at a young age. People want
No.
to say it's okay at an old age. I'm not here to say it's not, whatever, do your thing. But at a young age, it's weird. It is
And fu-
not okay.
and fundamentally, like it doesn't sound like a big difference between like a 14 and a 16-year-old. But like if you really think about like where a 14-year-old is at mentally, emotionally, where a 16-year-old is at, those should be very different.
Absolutely.
And if and I, I as a teacher and as someone who went into schools a lot as like a public health educator, I would talk to young people and especially young girls like I know it seems flattering if an older person is like, interested in you and flirting with you, but you have to think like where you are in your life as a high schooler and what they should be in their life as an adult, you two should have nothing in common with each other.
Right.
Even if you're
100%.
like mature for your age, you're not that
You're not.
mature and you're not and also like a 20 something year old should not be interested in you if you're in high school or middle school. Like there's something fundamentally wrong with that person if they have stuff in common. But you know, it's something like we didn't really talk about. Like I think about all the situations I put myself in, and I'm like, how have I
The
not died?
basements I was in, the random cars that I got in. Me and
Yeah,
my best friend talk about this all the time. Like, there's always that like one meme that travels around where it's like your parents thought you were at your friend's house, but you were dying like in a field.
yeah,
Literally, the amount of times I got into cars, the amount of times I went to people's basements, the amount of times I just blindly followed people and was like, and bless the good Lord that
yeah.
the people that I was with and that were hanging out understood consent, right? Like, I think
Yeah,
that's a big thing that we don't always talk about that is getting more and more talked about now, thank God. But
yeah.
no one talked to me about consent. No one. I didn't even know what the
Mm,
word consent was, right? Like,
no.
no one tells you that consent can stop at any point.
Hmm.
It doesn't once you've consented once, it doesn't mean you consent every time. No one said these things to me at any point growing up. I'm glad that this generation is a lot better at it. Um, but yeah, no, I think about that a lot. I think about the situations I got in and the situations I was in. And I'm just so grateful that the people, despite them being significantly older and probably
Hmm.
questionable at best, um, weren't like, we don't care if you say no. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
because they could have, and no one
right.
would have found me. I would have been in some random basement. No one would have found me. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it is, our generation was really, we were risk takers,
Yeah, yeah. Um,
unbeknownst, unknowingly.
yes, and now looking back, I'm like, "Oh my God." Um, it's crazy, but I think the other part too is that because so many folks like millennials and older generations never really talked about consent, never really learned that that also applies when you're in a marriage. That you are not
Only
obligated.
since 1995.
You,
Only since 1995, which is crazy when you think about it.
it's wild.
1995. I was 5 years old when women were given the right to say no to their husbands
Hmm. Yeah.
and accuse them of rape. What?
Like, yeah, you don't owe your spouse sex. You don't owe your spouse shit, in my opinion. And that's someone
Yeah.
who's also been divorced and is now remarried in a very healthy relationship. But
Mm.
like you don't owe people shit. And but a lot of people think like they have to, and if there's especially if there's, power dynamics, right? You have folks who, one partner is the only person who works outside the house and the other partner.
Financial. Absolutely.
Yeah, it
It's the
is
hugest downfall
wild.
and it's the hugest threat to independence because so many people, men and women included, when one spouse makes all of the money, you are very much put in a situation where you are taking what you're getting. And people, society have really done a poor job at saying that you can still say no. That there will be
Mhm.
people out there that will help you and support you. Now, I also say that as an incredibly privileged woman. So,
Yeah,
me saying that there are these resources out there, it's the same thing like period poverty, where
right.
there are, but can you get to them?
Yeah.
Can you get to a homeless shelter? Can you get to a women's shelter if you have to get to one? Are there rooms available? Can you pay a room rent? You know what I mean? Do you have the means to get there before 8 or 7 because some of them close at night, right? Like, and
Hmm.
are you with a child? Because if you have a child, that also changes it, right? Some places aren't
Yep.
open to children as well. So, I mean, it is incredibly it's an incredibly difficult line to be on and in. And it's really easy to look on the outside looking in, saying like, yeah, somebody will help you. But
Hmm.
some people, that's their survival and they have to do it that way and they have to do
Yeah.
it. And I'm never going to judge somebody for it because so many people do. They're like, why didn't you leave? And it's
Yeah.
like, She couldn't leave. He couldn't leave. Who was
Yeah.
going to pay for their kids? Who was going to pay for them? Not everyone has the education to go and get a job. You have to have an address to get a lot of jobs. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people just think anybody can go work at McDonald's. All right, well, you better have a permanent address.
Yeah.
And you better have a social security and you better have a
Yep.
driver's license.
Yep.
And if you don't have those things, then not some jobs won't hire you. And those are all things that come, you know, in your life with you know, the situations you're in. But like if you're not, it is really easy to be like, it's so easy, anyone can get a job. That's not the truth. And so many people need to lose that, you know, lose that narration, because it's just really it's a very privileged mindset that shows your privilege when you say it.
Yeah. I mean, and think about someone who's been homeless for a while. You think they can just show up to an interview without having taken a shower, without clean clothes, or what we consider professional clothes? You know, all of these things, you know, it is, society really sets that up. And one of the biggest fears that, that I have in a, you know, the direction our country seems to want to move in politically, I fear that that's only going to get worse, because we're moving into a mindset of, you know, women, you know, there are some elected officials, people who like make laws for our country, who believe that women shouldn't have the right to vote anymore, that unmarried women should have like no rights at all. And there are a lot of people who just believe like women should be at home taking care of the kids, like barefoot in the
You
kitchen.
better make a lot of money then.
Yeah, boom. In this
Because
economy.
I've been the breadwinner in the last 2 relationships I've been in.
Same.
And I mean, listen, somebody wants to pay my student loans. The government wants to get back up in there, erase them, get rid of my credit card debt, start paying all my bills. You know, I'd be more than happy to stay at home.
Oh, absolutely.
But no, all kidding aside, I really do. It really is. It's scary. It's really scary. I'm an immigrant.
Yeah.
I'm adopted. So when I was brought to this country, I became a citizen by a law that got passed. And all the time I think about people talking about denaturalizing citizens and what that means for me. And I have zero ties to the country that I was born in. I've been here since I was like 3 days old, right?
Wow.
And I think to myself all the time, what does it mean for me? And if I'm scared and my parents paid a lot of money to get me, what about the people that are in other situations that, you know, don't have all the means that I have? And I always tell people, like, I think when and if it comes down to these things, it's not going to matter what our positions are. No one's going to look at me any different because I'm a lawyer. They're going to look at me the same way they're going to look at the next person who is not born in this country. And I think the only thing that we can do is make your voice known, you know, vote for change, vote for different things. Make sure you're voting in you know, your state elections, your general elections. Make sure you're electing congressmen, you know, congressmen and women and officials that are going to align with the things that you believe in, because your vote is powerful. And as everyone says, it's not, it is. And self-preservation is the big thing. It's a luxury though. And you kind of have to think about, you know, what you need to do to make sure that you're safe and that, you know, you're mentally safe and physically safe. Because, you know, I know so many people who, you know, come the new year are moving out of the country. And that's a luxury. That's a really big luxury to be able to leave this country and be like, you know, everyone says leave then. And you're like, are you going to pay for me to leave?
We have in our household looked into this. There are a lot of countries are not just like, yeah, come on in, babe.
Right.
Like you have to, like even Canada, you have to prove like you're worth it to Canada. Like you have skills that will contribute to the economy in Canada, for example. And it's like I live in, you know, Western New York. I'm like an hour from the border, you know, so like even still, I'm not just like,
If you have to
come on
run.
in. Yeah, right. But that, you
When
know,
Gilead comes, you're on the edge.
but these are privileges, right? that, paying to get a passport photos, paying for the flight, paying for all the application fees and everything you have to do. It adds up. And then you've got to figure out a whole life in a different country, a different culture. And like you have kids, we're very fortunate. We have family so close by. Like my in-laws literally live around the corner from us and stuff
Right.
like that. My mom watches my kids, so I don't have to pay for daycare and stuff. So like all those things would be gone. And it's like we'd have to figure all that out. Thankfully, my spouse and I are educated. We know we're, resource savvy. Would figure it out, but not everybody's in that position. And so there
I think
isn't
it's a
this
really
just
slippery
leap.
slope too. You know, you watch Handmaid's Tale and you see how quickly that stuff changes.
Yeah.
You see how quickly it goes from just telling a girl she shouldn't be jogging in a sports bra to her entire life changing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and I always tell it's so sad because I go to the Women's March every year
Mhm.
in Philadelphia, and I took my niece to see Ruth Bader Ginsburg get presented into the American Jewish Museum in New York
Oh yeah.
before she
Mhm.
passed away.
Yeah.
And I mean, RIP, RBC too, because
Yeah.
the queen.
uh,
I remember telling my niece, like, this is a monumental moment in time. You will be able to talk about this for the rest of your life. You got to see a female Supreme Court justice. And from that high to then where we're at now, it's truly devastating. It's truly
yes.
being like, yo, I'm worried for you. And I tell her that all the time. I'm worried for you. Like, I'm already kind of old. And like,
Yeah.
I'm not, and I'm spicy. I don't give a crap about saying shit. Your generation, like, you kind of got to watch your mouth still.
Mhm.
And they don't. The Gen X, the Gen Z and the Gen Alphas,
They don't give a fuck.
they walk
I
out of
love them.
jobs.
I love these kids.
I've never met people with that energy. My assistant is a Gen Z. She likes to say she's not, but she is. Um, and she will literally be like, I remember her saying to people at a job we worked at together, she was like, some people are okay with eating crumbs, and I'm not. And I'll
Oh
walk out. And I said, yes.
yes.
I was like, I love you. You are who I want to work for me. You are who I want to handle my shit because you're the type that like when shit goes bad and I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't have. She's like, nope, Heather, you're off the clock. You're not doing that. No, Heather, we're putting boundaries up. We're setting standards. We're
Yeah.
not doing that. We're like me as a millennial. I'm like, oh my God, of course I have to answer my boss at 11 p.m. at night. Like,
You're right.
of course I have to be accessible on my anniversary trip in France. Like,
Right.
I mean, because that's just who we are, right? Like, we chronically feel guilty and chronically feel like we have to be accessible. Where she's like, no. She's like,
No.
immediately no. She's like, unless I'm being paid, I'm not being there.
Right.
And
And I
I
think,
envy that.
yeah, no, I love that. Like, and I'm trying to embody that. It's easier for me to give that information to my younger sisters and be like, listen, even though you're salaried, that doesn't mean you're 24/7, babe. Like,
Yeah.
you're salaried to work 40 hours a week and whatever that looks like for your company. Some companies are, flexible about what that looks like and whatnot, um, but that does not mean you're accessible 24/7. Nobody works a job where you need to be accessible 24/7
Right.
because the minute a company decides that you're not worth it anymore, they're not going to be like, "Oh, let me look out for you. Let me make sure of this." They're
Right.
going to drop your ass.
Right. That's what my
But I
assistant
only
always
give it
says
so
to
much.
me. She literally always says that to me. She's like, Heather, she's like, if you died tomorrow, they would replace you in a heartbeat. They wouldn't send cards to your family. They wouldn't care.
No.
So remember that and come with the same energy. And
Yeah.
I'm like, ugh, I can't though, because I am a broken women millennial who is chronically thinking that, I find self-worth in the way that I perform and the way that other people view my performance.
Yep.
And I'm chronically apologizing. I'm chronically being like, and I've gotten feistier over the past
Yeah.
year. Like I've definitely been, actually, I've gotten feistier since my divorce, if I'm being honest, because I was like, you know what? Ain't no shit gonna hurt me anymore. Nothing
No.
can bring me down again.
Nope.
So since then, I've been like, you know what? I'm going to kind of talk back. I'm
Yeah.
going to kind of be like, okay, give me reasons why. Why do I
Mhm.
have to do it this way? What is it that I'm doing wrong? Is there something wrong with my performance?
Right.
And if you're not saying yes, then I feel like this
That's a
isn't
you problem.
I feel like we could table this another time.
Mhm.
I feel like that's an internal dialogue that you guys need to have. And there've been so many opportunities and jobs and businesses that I've had since then there where I've done that. I've had more of a, a mouth on me to be like, no, stop.
No, I don't
I'm
care.
grateful for the jobs that I had, don't get me wrong. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for all the opportunities that I've been given and the job that I have, and people being tolerating and understanding. Um, but in the same breath, I think, like, know your worth, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think that's the best thing that she always said to me, and other people have said to me, is like, know your worth and don't apologize for it.
Never. Never. Oh, you have given so many like little pearls of wisdom. I'm almost hesitant to ask this my final question as we wrap up. Um, the hour goes by so fast every time. Like we just get to chatting and it's like, oh shit. But one of the questions I ask all of my guests at the end uh, is there anything you were hoping I was going to ask you or talk about, but I didn't? And do you have, some advice for all the listeners? Just advice about anything.
I would say no. I think we talked about everything and more than I would have thought we would talk about. So I think I had an amazing time on that. And my only advice to anybody listening would be exist loudly and be authentic. And you'd be surprised all the magical things that can come from it. I have lived in a world where I refuse to make myself digestible to the next person. And I have been given many opportunities where I could have been somebody that I'm not. And I've said I'm always going to be authentic because I think audiences see that, people see that. And um, this whole thing, this whole social media, this whole life thing is all about connections. And authenticity makes the easiest way to make a connection because you're not having to pretend to be somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, that's gold. I love that so much. That like encapsulates like our whole conversation. I love that. You have been an absolute delight to have, and
Thank you.
I have really enjoyed getting to know you, and I'm so thankful for you to be on, and hopefully, we can jump on again sometime in the future and have some more chats. And I will drop all your socials into the show notes for folks to follow you, support you, and all of the great work that you do. But thank you so, so much. I truly appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was a fun time.
Another huge thank you to Heather for being on the podcast and sharing so much wisdom and insight. It truly was an amazing experience to get to know you and for the listeners to be able to get to know you as well. As always, Heather's information will be in the show notes, so make sure to follow Heather and show her all of the love that you possibly can. Again, thank you so, so much.